Hey you, don't mess with that. No, no, stop. I'm filming my intro. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. No, 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 no! This is the part where you imagine ketchup is all over my face because YouTube does not allow fake blood in their intros. Welcome to the monkey review. Last night, I got to see a new film from Osgood Perkins that was added to his filmography, which is called The Monkey. Now, I was excited for this movie, not only because of the cast that included Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, Elijah Wood, and even Adam Scott, but because this was a new adaptation of a Stephen King novel. Now, Stephen King's books don't always necessarily translate the best to film adaptations. I've seen this with a lot of different of his books, like Pet Sematary. That one has been done and put in the ground so many times that we just, at this point, we just keep getting them a reboot every couple of years, and it's just not worth it. But I'm always interested in seeing the insanity that his books to movies cause. Like The Mist is one of the craziest endings of a film you will ever watch. That has a lot of shock value. The It from a couple of years back was really good. The first one, the second one was not great. And then even Pet Sematary, I'm always interested to see even how that one fails every single time. I don't feel like it should be too difficult to do zombie cats and zombie dogs, but we're still here with it. So I walked into this movie with high to modest expectations, and I walked out pleasantly surprised by the film. Now, that being said, there was a lot of issues that I had with the film, but I walked out having a fun time. So before I tell you everything, let's get on into the good. Starting with the good, I was actually really looking forward to seeing the cast and seeing what they bring to the table. And for the most part, I think they all gave solid performances. Starting with Adam Scott. Adam Scott, it was in Parks and Rec and other shows like that. And so this movie is more comedic than you would think. And he was actually able to bring some of that comedic chop back to this movie. And so he was a pleasant surprise that I didn't know he was going to be in the film. So I really enjoyed that. And actually, I could say the same thing for Elijah Wood. Elijah Wood was from the Lord of the Rings movies, and I would not expect him in a horror movie, but I had a lot of fun with his character. Now, he doesn't have much to do in this film. He's only in there for like a couple minutes, so I'm not going to give you too much to look forward to. But it is interesting to see him kind of return back into a high-profile project like this one after so many years. So that was really cool. Tatiana Maslany was actually in this project as well, playing one of the moms for the characters. And I'm not going to give you too much, but she does have some of the best lines and best quips in the film. And I really thought that was fun. And it was really nice to see her, especially in a role like this after the abomination we had with She-Hulk. And yes, I mean literal abomination. The next character that we actually got to focus on, and the next actor we get to focus on, is Theo James. And he actually plays two different characters, so he was doing double duty. And I thought he gave a solid performance and made you feel like these two characters had different personalities, are separate. Each of them have different motives. And so I thought he did a really good job interacting with himself as well. And the chemistry with himself is actually really well done. So there's a lot of good things with him. But to be truthfully honest, the actual cast member I found the most compelling out of this whole movie was actually Christian Convery, who played the younger version of Theo James's twins. And he did a phenomenal job. I don't know how to sugarcoat it. I think he did a really good job and had to carry a lot of the legwork with the setup of the film. So he did a great job for a kid that age. Also, he had to separate the two different twin personalities, and he was the person that we were introduced to in this film. Now, I was expecting Theo James to be in this movie more than he was, and that still does happen, but the runtime of this movie is 1 hour and 38 minutes, and he's probably in it, or Christian Convery is probably in it for about 30 of those minutes. And so he had a huge 1/3 chunk of this film that he was a part of, and I think he did a really good job improving the dynamics of the twins and how they interact with each other and establishing what their relationship is during the time of what we're looking at. And I just think he did a very, very good job. And I would not mind seeing him in other projects. And I know he's in Sweet Tooth, but I would like to see more of him as he grows up. The next thing that this movie does really well is actually the comedy of the film. Now, if you've seen the trailers, you know that there are little quips or jokes there, or just funny images or something like that. But this movie is about 1,000 times more comedic than you'd actually think it would be. I'm not kidding when I think there was a joke every other minute in this film until you get into the later half of the film. So there's just a lot of jokes, and I think that was really well done because you're supposed to be leaning into the silly nature of the movie, and since it's a monkey playing drums and then people die, like, I'm glad they're leaning into that. They're not taking themselves seriously, and I kind of like that for the film itself. And there was just a lot more happening in this film than you'd expect. I would say that this movie is more a Final Destination with a comedy, which is a crazy, crazy thing to say, but it's a comedic Final Destination film at its best. And I actually would go as far as saying that this movie is actually more of a comedy than it actually is a horror film. Now, you do get to see the gnarly kills, and there are a lot of gross images in this film, but honestly, they lack any like tension or suspense in these moments, and it's more looked on as a joke, like someone gets impaled by a mailbox. It happens, and you're just supposed to laugh about it. And these moments happen all throughout the film where there's just more jokes and less suspense than you would think there would be. If you're a big horror person, you might not love that, but for me, it worked personally because I liked how they were leaning into the silly nature of the film rather than actually just taking the whole monkey thing seriously. So that was something I really enjoyed. Now, I will say, with the corny jokes that happen in the film, the dialogue actually worked well for me since they're leaning into the insanity of the film. Now, if this was more serious horror with more suspense, the dialogue would not be for this film at all. But since they actually are just leaning into it, I'm all for it with that. And without giving you anything away, I had a lot of fun with the jokes. And so that's all I really had for the good that I really wanted to talk about. This movie was way more comedic than I thought it would be, but I had a lot of fun and the actors gave solid performances. But let's move on to the mix section. Moving on to the mix section, there's only one thing I really wanted to focus on real quick. This is going to be super simple, and it was actually the kills in this movie. Now, there is a lot of things that go on, a lot of kills that happen, but they don't happen the way you necessarily expect them to or would necessarily want them to. There's a lot of funny jokes with them, and I think that was done really well, but I would have rather seen more bodies dropped than what we actually saw. Now, there are a lot of bodies that die, but it's more of off-screen or just hinted at and things like that. You'll know if you've seen them film, but I wish we had more of it up close and more fun kills than what we actually got. This movie is, at its best, more of a comedic version of Final Destination. Things happen that normally shouldn't happen, but I really wish they leaned more into some of the horror aspects for the kills, and we got to see more of that to elevate the film for me personally. And that's why it's in the mix section, just because I feel like there wasn't as much of on-screen deaths as some horror films might have wanted to be there, but I had fun with it. And if you think that you had enough deaths, that is your opinion, and you're a-okay to have that. With all that being said, let's move on to the bad. Now, for starters, I actually do want to say I really did enjoy this film. I had a lot of fun with the kills and the jokes and that all being merged together, but there's always something wrong with me for a film like this, and this time it is actually the plot, unfortunately. The plot in this film, they do a lot of good things that do make sense, but unfortunately once you get to the back half of the film, there's just a lot of plot twists that they try to make you feel like they earned it, but to me, they actually didn't. Now, they do explain these plot twists, but unfortunately, it just did not feel earned. I will say, I think they need to add a couple more scenes into this film to make it feel more cohesive. There's a character at the very beginning of this film where they do something and we have fun with them, but they end up making a decision later in the film off screen, and I don't think that that character from the minutes that we saw would actually have done what he did. And I hope that if you guys have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But then there's also a plot twist later in the film where I just don't feel like it was necessarily earned at all. They do have some themes and some setup, and then they do actually talk about it and explain why, but it just kind of lacked where the reasoning there, and they do even point to the reasoning of why he did it and why it was stupid in the first place and why his motive was stupid. But I just think that they could have added a little bit more scenes there, and to where we could have followed each twin instead of just focusing on one at a time, and I feel like it would have been more earned than what we actually got. So that was something I really didn't like in the film. I feel like there was just things happening that didn't feel earned in the back half of things. And even since the first 30 minutes, I felt really strong. There were some ideas that were dropped in the back half of the film. The next part of the bad for me is actually the monkey, and it's not the monkey itself, but it's actually the writers of the film and how they utilize the monkey in the back half of the film. In the very beginning, we get established a set of rules in the film. For example, when you first find out how the monkey works, they establish a set of rules and boundaries for the monkey in the first place. You find out that once you turn the monkey's key on the back of its back, someone close to you dies, and the person that turns it can't die. That's how they've set it up in the very beginning of this film, and that's what we were going through throughout the whole film until the very end. The very end, it's all rules out the window. They just take it out and throw it, and honestly, they just kind of used it willy-nilly at the very end, which I was not a fan of. You establish a certain set of rules and expectations for how you operate the monkey, and you just throw it all out to make whatever happen that you want to happen. So I don't feel like the writers thought all of that through. I think they could have explained things better, and maybe if we got a sequel, they would. I don't think we are getting a sequel after watching this film. There is a chance, but I don't think we will. Now, I do really want to state that I actually really did enjoy the movie, and if you go in just for a funny time and just being entertained, that's what you get out of this film. I was really entertained, but for a movie as itself and the writing and the plot, I don't think it necessarily worked for me, but I did have a lot of fun with that. So that was all the main points I wanted to talk about in this film. I had a lot of fun with it just because it was entertaining with the jokes and the kills. Do I necessarily think it's a great movie? No, but I did have a lot of fun with it. So let me know in the comments, would you recommend this movie to someone else? And then have you seen it? Have you not? And I'm excited to have a conversation with you down in the comments below. So just list all of your opinions on the film, and I would love to hear you out for them, because I think that these movies bring us together to have great discussions, and I'm super excited that you will be visiting me down in the comments below. As well, if you liked this review so far, you can go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. I have a lot of fun making these videos, and I'm actually doing news videos as well. The next news video is almost going to be about 40 minutes long, so I'm going to be in the process of editing all of that. That'll be a lot of fun, and that'll be coming out in the next couple of days. I have to figure out how to edit it all together because there was just a lot of news that dropped. So stay tuned for that. So go ahead and click the subscribe button for that, as well as follow me on any of my socials around here. I actually am on TikTok as well, and I post short clips of things of my reviews or reviews that I haven't even had full time to make. And so I put reviews on TikTok as well if you want to go and follow me over there. With that being said, let's get into the new final scorecard. So, as some of you noticed, I did say a new final scorecard, and as you can see on the screen, this is the new rating system. I want to give you all of my accurate opinions on the film. So first off, I'm going to score the film on itself on 5 different criteria. First, we got the plot, which is how the story chooses itself to move itself along. And I actually gave it a 3 because this was my main problem with the film as a whole. I think that it was really done well in some parts of the film, and that's why it's not at a 0, but it does get kind of clunky in the back half of the film. Next up is actually going to be the dialogue, which is basically how the characters in the film communicate and interact with one another. And I would also say that the chemistry is super important in this section as well, but I have given it a 4 because there was a lot of conversations and jokes delivered very well in this film that I had a lot of fun with. Following up, the next section is actually action. And for some weird reason, I actually wanted more to happen in this film, or just have more brutal kills that were established on screen. there wasn't a lot that was mind-blowing to me, and so for that reason I actually gave it a 3. You may have a very different opinion on this and think that some of these kills are some of the best you've seen in recent times, and I think that they're decent, but I don't think that they're as shocking as what I would have wanted in a film. And so that is just my opinion. You can have your own different opinion, and feel free to write that down in the comments below. Next up is actually suspense. And like I said before, there was really no suspense in this film for me. I think that all of this was due to all the comedic timing and just the pure insanity of the plot itself, where there is just jokes all the time. It's more of a comedy movie than it is a horror film for me. And so I can see casual moviegoers, or like this is your first time watching a horror film, that you would actually find that there's a lot of suspense in this film. But for me, as a person that watches horror movies quite a bit, I don't think that the suspense was actually there. And finally, this is something kind of unique, but this last section is based on previous directors' work. And so I gotta say, Osgood Perkins has done a couple of good films. The one that stands above them all is actually Longlegs, which released last year. And now this year we actually got The Monkey, and I think this was a solid job. And I think he did a really good job adding this film to his filmography. I'm excited to see what his next part of his movie filmography will be about. There was just a lot that I kind of really liked about the way he does his styles and all the shots in the films. So I gave it a 4 on this list. Now, for the next part, this is what I think these categories would rate these movies. So for the casual moviegoer, I'm actually going to give the film about an 8. This is like the score for the casual moviegoers that I would expect if I asked you, what would you rate this film? I think you would give me an 8. Now, for the family, I'm actually going to say a 0, because I don't think any family with younger children should actually be going to this film. There are a lot of things that happen in this film, and a lot of the jokes are about death. So I don't think that this movie is suitable for younger audiences or younger families, but if you have kids that are into a bunch of horror movies, go for it. So for the next segment, we're actually going to be talking about the genre fans, and actually I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. And this one, it kind of depends on what segment you want to fall in. If you love comedy, then you'll really like this film, I think. If you really like horror, I think you're going to have a fun experience with it. But if you like both, oh, this is a no-brainer for you. For film buffs like myself, which are people that go to the movies all the time, I would actually give it a 6 out of 10. Now, this isn't saying that I think this movie is bad. I actually had a lot of fun with this movie, and I would actually rate my own score as 7 out of 10. But with the plot and everything else, I think this will bring the movie score down for a lot of different film buffs. And for critics, I gave it a 6 out of 10 as well. I just kind of casually looked online to see what other critics were thinking, and they gave it about a 6 out of 10. And so that's where they are placed right there. For my final recommendation on what I think each segment should do with this movie, I gave it either rated a stream, a skip, or a run. And first up, we actually have the casual moviegoer again. And honestly, I would recommend streaming this movie unless you're looking for a funny horror film. This one I would just stream. Following that, if you want to watch a family movie, I would not suggest this film for your family, but who knows, you might actually love watching horror films with your family. And for that case, I would actually say stream it as well, but for the most part, I would say please skip this film for your family. With genre fans, this is one that was actually hard for me to either say stream or run to the theaters for, because this kind of just depends on if you like horror comedies. If you don't, then this is not for you. If you do, then run to the theaters. But for right now, I'm just actually going to be putting it under the streaming section. That's what I would tell you to do, is stream this film. And then for film buffs like me, I'd actually say go run to the theaters for this one. I had a lot of fun with it, and it also is really good to support up-and-coming directors like Osgood Perkins himself. And then for critics, honestly, I said run, because for the most part, they'll actually be seeing this movie anyways. And so I think they'll have some enjoyment out of this no matter what. And so with that, that is the first new ranking on the new system. Let me know what your thoughts on the new system for the ranking was, the new scorecard. I want to hear your feedback, because I'm actually trying to tweak this to what you guys actually want to learn from my reviews. So if you have a better recommendation, please put something in the comments down below. So that was just my review for Osgood Perkins' new movie, The Monkey. Like I said, I had a lot of fun with it, but there were a lot of problems for me with the film itself. If you want to hear any of my other movie reviews or movie discussions or even movie news, I got a lot of videos coming out with that, or you can click on one of these other videos around here to see another one of my movie reviews or news. And thank you guys for watching this video, and stay safe out there.